Okay, hello Chuck, how is it going?
I'm okay.
Are you ready to start talking a little bit about yourself and singing and screaming and growling?
As much as I can. Yeah, sure.
So the first question actually goes that do you recall when you heard metal or heavier rock for the first time?
Well, rock would probably be, I don't know if you would consider rock, but something harder and heavier for me because I have an older brother that played music. And he was into like Crosby, Stills, Nash, but then like Creedence Clearwater Revival was kind of like for me a heavier sound and heavier vocal on it. And then of course, getting a little closer into Black Sabbath, of course, being a little harder and heavier and darker. That was probably it, I mean, I never paid attention to the vocals because I grew up and wanted to be a guitar player. So I always listened to the guitars and I focused on guitars, so I never knew any lyrics or I couldn't remember any lyrics because I was looking at the guitars. So that's how I kind of, was introduced to something heavier was guitar-wise, not vocal-wise.
So how did you eventually become a vocalist then?
My younger brother had a band, and me and Steve Souza from Exodus, we would go to the rehearsals and it would be like the roadies.
Okay.
And they practice inside a trailer, like they haul on the road. And we used to go watch them practice. And one day they gave me the lyrics and said, "Hey, you sing today." So I said, okay, because I was at enough rehearsals. I watched all the time. I knew the songs and the music. So I said, okay. So I sang that day. And then from that day, they said, okay, you're the new singer. And I'm like, well, I play guitar. I want to play guitar. I don't want to be a singer. But I said, okay, I'll sing. And so that kind of was my introduction, how to learn how to become a singer. And then at that point, I went back to college and took some singing lessons and music theory lessons. I went and started taking private lessons for singing because I didn't know how to be a singer. So I had to kind of go and learn. And so I took a couple of years in college, private lessons, and then group lessons I took also. After a few years, my teacher said, okay, I'm done. I taught enough of it. Go find a band now. So at that time, I was looking for a band, and Steve Souza, who's in Exodus, he was in Exodus, or Legacy at the time.
Yep.
He was quitting Legacy to join Exodus. So he called me, hey, I'm leaving this to join Exodus. Here, call the Legacy guys. They're going to need a singer. So I called Alex Skolnick and said, hey, I'm looking for audition. So I got an audition, and I made the audition.
And here you are,
and here
quite
I am,
many years
37
later.
years later from the same band.
When you started singing, were you first doing like covers or did you immediately jump writing like your own music, or how did that happen for you?
It was covers. I mean, when I was taking lessons, it was training, singing cover songs. Elvis Costello and stuff like that.
Okay.
And of course, when I was doing this was early 80s. 80, 81, 82, 83, something like that. So I wasn't really introduced to metal yet. I love bands like UFO and Thin Lizzy, Scorpions.
So more like rock bands.
Rock bands. So when I was taking vocal training, I was training to be melodic and sing and hold melodies. So that's what I started out with, was trying to be a rock singer. And then when I joined Legacy, it was a total different thing. It wasn't about being a melodic band because they played very fast and everything was da 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 da. So I had to learn, and Eric, like when I joined the band, Eric said, okay, because Steve wrote all the lyrics already for the first record.
Okay.
So I had to learn all the first records. So I had like 8 or 9 songs that I had to learn. Okay, this isn't about carrying a melody over it. I got to sing fast and be right on the beat and right on the time. So Eric like trained me for like a year, and then within that year they had a record deal with Steve, but then they left. When he left, the label Johnny Z at Megaforce said, "Hey, let me hear the new singer. Have him do a demo." So I went and sang the 3 songs again that Steve did for the demo, for the audition. And they said, okay, maybe we'll come out and we'll see you live. So they flew to San Francisco, and I had an audition for them live at the studio, and I sang all the songs. And they said, okay, we got a deal. And so I auditioned, got in my first band, auditioned for Johnny and Marcia Zazuli, got a record deal, and here I am.
So when you started doing like more like metal vocals, did it take like long time to figure out the right technique for it? Were you losing your voice like all the time?
No. The first year, like I said, I trained with Eric, so I picked it up really fast.
Okay.
And then I recorded the record, and then we went on tour. So within 2 years, I really learned how to do it, got to record a record, and then got to go tour just really fast. So by the time we did the New Order record, the second record is when I got to write and work and put my input on those songs. So what I did at that time is I remembered everything fast because the music was still fast, but I still try to put some little melody and flavor in there
on the stuff. So I try to combine the rock techniques I learned with
the thrash style. And that's kind of what I stuck to. And going forward with Testament, all the records, I kind of try to find my way to sing fast and heavy, but also put some melodies in it a little bit.
So were there like some specific vocalists that you sort of looked up to and mimicked when you started doing your own vocal journey?
Well, James Hetfield, of course, was number one at that time because he did it very well. He was the one singing that style. There wasn't many other bands that were doing it like that.
Yeah, you were the pioneers, one of them.
Yeah, so James was probably one of the ones I followed. Even to this day, even we write songs like, what would James do? You know, how would James do this one? So that's always carries in the back of my mind how he does it and what he does. And I just kind of just adapted to it after time. I got in the band, made a record, went on tour. The next year, wrote a record, made a record, toured. The next year, wrote a record, made a record, toured. 4 years in a row, we made records and wrote records. So it was like 40 songs we wrote in 4 years and toured every year. So I learned really fast how to do it, you know, and then we started slowing down after that. But, you know, the first 4 years, it was just nothing but write, tour, record. I mean, that was it.
So speaking about like the first ever tours that you did, were you ready as a vocalist to do like show after show after show? Or was it like a learning experience also for you?
It was definitely learning because I would lose my voice because I would sing too hard and sing too much. And I drank and partied way too much. And
typical stuff.
And had hangovers. You know? So I had to learn how to do it and make sure I could get it done with a hangover. That was probably the learning part of it because I didn't take it like serious.
Yeah.
I was just like, I'm in a band, I'm going on tour, I'm making music, the dream, you know, and not think about it as this is my job, this is my career. I didn't think about it that way. So, of course, you know, it took some time to figure out, okay, I can't do this every day and party every day and drink every day. But one thing I've always did is when I took lessons from Judy Davis, I had a vocal warm-up tape that I got from her. And every time before I sing, I use that tape. It's an hour warm-up. So I always do it. Even to this day, I still do that tape every performance. And it's mostly confidence thing. If I don't do it, I think, oh, I'm not ready to sing tonight. Yeah. So, you know, I have my little rituals now.
I was actually going to ask you next that how has your like routines changed from the early days, or has they remained sort of the same to prepare for the show?
I don't drink like that on the road at all. I don't have a hangover. I don't smoke weed anymore on the tours anymore. So I'm physically ready to do it. And then now I still do the same warm-up tape for 1 hour every day. And it's the same routine. An hour and a half before showtime, I start my tape and I start doing it. And sometimes it's an hour and a half, but it's the same thing every night.
Do you have any way of like cooling off after the show, or?
No, I just don't. I try not to talk very much. Even though my voice might not be hurting, I still don't talk a lot. After the show, I'm just quiet. I don't say much.
So, are there like some specific foods or drinks that you try to avoid the show that you have felt that they affect your vocal cords somehow, or on the opposite side, something that you want to take?
All the food. So I can't eat at least 6 hours before the performance.
Okay.
If I have a full stomach, I can't breathe. I can't get the right wind, and then I hurt my voice. So I know now that at least 6 hours. I have my final big meal, and then I'll have something after the show.
Is there something that you have felt that helps you with the singing?
No, not helped. The one thing I do during the show sometimes is I'll have like salty potato chips.
Okay.
And I'll have one of those just to, something about the texture just gets my voice, makes my voice feel a little better. That's just sometimes, but not all the time. That's it. It's the same routine, the same thing every day. Just, okay, I got to hurry up. What time's the show? Okay, I have to eat dinner by 3 o'clock, Like today, I had a nice big lunch earlier, and now I won't have anything big until after the show.
So you're like quite precise with eating.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously during your career you have released a lot of albums with Testament. Are there like some specific albums that you could pinpoint where you have felt that you've taken like big step forward as a vocalist? Learned something new about yourself?
All the time. Like last record on Titans of Creation, song City of Angels.
I used maybe 3 different voices and even a new voice. So even after 35 years, I was still trying new things.
And yeah, I pushed myself. Like even on the new record, we recorded the new record before we came to Europe. I'm doing some more screaming and stuff, and I don't scream a lot, like not till from the early years. So I'm trying some new things again on this record. It all depends on the music, what it calls for, what the feeling needs, and I don't know that until we get into the studio and write it and go, I don't know, it needs something else. It needs this maybe, and I'll say, let's try it. And we try it, and he's like, yeah, that works good. Okay, now let's try this other voice, and then we'll blend them together. So I'll have a scream, a low voice, and then a talking voice or something. And then we'll just blend everything.
Oh, that's nice. That makes for a good effect. I don't need to use an effect. Let's just use the voices to make an effect. And so we're always trying something new.
Always experimenting, especially in the studio. And then once we find out, and then after living with it for a while, it becomes a natural thing live, what I need to do to make that feeling the same.
So when you were recording the first albums with Testament, were those like learning experiences for you, how to work in the studio and how to record an album? And
I didn't learn much because I didn't pay attention much, but before I did the first record, I only did 3 songs in a studio before the demo. That's the only time I ever went to the studio, was making that demo, and we had a record deal, and then I had to go to New York to make a record. I didn't know how to make a record. I didn't know technique. I just put the headphones on and just yelled out like I was in this regular studio, I didn't get to experiment with voices or anything. I just did one voice, and that was it. I didn't know. I wasn't in control. It was the producer in control. But over the years, now I know what I need to do, and I know what to try, and what works and what doesn't work, but it just comes with time.
Would you still be able to replicate those early albums, like vocal-wise?
Yeah.
Or was it like that you were just like pushing too hard and breaking your voice down?
The thing is when we made those records, the tuning was different. We tuned in standard 440 tuning, where I didn't even know about that. So when I was much younger and my voice was much higher, I had to adapt to those tunings. And then over the years, we decided, why don't we tune the guitars a half step down? And I'm like, said I sing it, and I'm like, this feels way better. Now I got better range. We should have did this from the beginning, but I didn't know. You learn.
Couple of questions left, and the second last one actually is that do you remember what were your parents' reactions when they heard you screaming your lungs out?
They've always been supportive. My dad probably seen me perform more. My mom only watched me perform one time. That was it. She came, we played at the Oakland Coliseum opening for Judas Priest. Her and my dad came to the show, and she watched. That was the first time she ever seen me perform. And they were very proud. They wanted to sit up in the crowd, and they were, yeah, that's my son, my son. And they were very proud, and everybody was like, giving them a lot of love, My mother was a singer, and when she was younger, she sang and did records for the Red Cross.
Okay.
So she was always a singer, and I think that's kind of where I got the singing bug from, was my mom. But she always used to tell me, don't be a singer, go to school, get a good job, don't do that. She didn't want me to do this, But I think until she seen me perform a big show and we had record deals, then she supported me after that.
So do you have a specific way to hold the microphone when you perform?
Yeah, I used to have a stand, so I used to always hold a half stand with me, but I gave that up a few years ago, so now I just hold the microphone. My problem when I held a stand, I'd put the mic too far away. So the sound man would always go, put the mic right up to your mouth, get it up there. So now when I have it like this, now my technique is right on the mic. So I held it really close now. But now I'm free to have my hands and go like this, and I like it better.
Any kind of advice that you would like to give to a young metal vocalist who is just about to start their journey? Anything that comes into your mind?
Always take training, you learn your abilities, what you can do and can't do. When your voice is hoarse and you lose your voice, you're doing something wrong, so it just takes time. If you're learning training, there's so much music to try to copy now, you probably get a better edge than I did. There wasn't much metal for me to follow or to try to understand it besides a handful of people, So I think people now starting probably have a better grip and starting point than I did.
For sure, because there's now like YouTube and all those tutorials what to do.
Yeah, and there's people like you probably see these kind of interviews. I didn't get to see any thrash metal singer interviews that helped me.
Hey, thanks a lot for taking the time.
Thank you.